10 ways the Google Pixel 6a is better than the iPhone SE 2022 or the third generation of this device. Now, some people automatically have already picked their winner, but the first one is the overall design. Design is subjective, but so is this video. Just putting better in the title is subjective. This is YouTube, and I'm sharing my opinions here with you. Personally, I believe this phone is just much more modern looking than the iPhone SE 2022. This one came out, years ago, this design with the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8. So look at those bezels. They just look like they're from a different era. And the Google Pixel 6a looks much more in line with our current modern design language. So definitely the upper hand here goes to the Google Pixel 6a. I would even say some people would think that the 6a looks even better than another competitor, the Galaxy A53. Although the A53 does look in line with the current competition, it looks a little cheaper with this plastic back, whereas this one is plastic as well, but it kind of gives the impression that it's glass. So definitely the Pixel 6a just knocks it out of the park, in my opinion, when it comes to design. Do you agree or do you disagree? Let me know down below in the comments. So the next one is the OLED display here on board is not only more saturated, it's also a sharper panel than the iPhone SE on the Google Pixel 6a. This phone still has 326 ppi on the iPhone SE, which is definitely a lot less sharp than the 429 ppi for the Google Pixel 6a. Now, some people are gonna not see it on video, but keep in mind that it is a sharper panel. The iPhone SE has a smaller panel as well. It's only at 4.7 inches. We do have 6.1 inches here overall. So not only is it more vibrant, it also does split screen on here. So there's a lot more you can do. Well, I have to actually have two applications open. You can actually take advantage of that with split screen and stuff like that on the Google Pixel 6a. Not only that, if you do set it up in the home settings, you can actually rotate the screen as well. So this one definitely does allow for screen rotation. You'll have to have auto rotate on, and you can rotate that home screen, something you can't even do on some other Android devices, and you definitely cannot do on the iPhone SE. So the display is more versatile. It's larger, sharper, and definitely much more vibrant. So it just blows away the iPhone SE in display, I would say. And those bezels, I just can't get down with these bezels no more. So definitely not my favorite here when it comes to display, but that smaller size is definitely one of the draws of the SE. It still just looks very old, and you got to remember these phones are in the same price range, $449, $429. Some people say, well, that $20 is a big deal. All you got to do is trade in even an older phone and you'll get that $50 off of the Google Pixel 6a. You trade in something a little bit more valuable, you'll get a much bigger discount. And this phone is likely to come down as well in the coming months with sales and stuff like that. So if you just wait it out a couple months, you'll probably get this for $349, $379, something like that. So definitely a stronger display for sure. So the camera system is the next reason the Google Pixel 6a is better, especially on the rear. On the front, it's really competitive, but on the rear, you're looking at a dual camera setup here. For the Pixel 6a, you can do the ultra wide, you can zoom in as well with their algorithm, and you can take very nice photos here. You have night sight modes. This camera feels a little bit more fully featured than the iPhone SE, which feels like just a standard iPhone setup with nothing really on top of that. Now, some people really love the standard iPhone setup, and don't get me wrong, these pictures are amazing on the SE. The video quality probably arguably better on the SE because Apple does do a really good job with video focus and stuff like that. However, I think for the money, you're getting a little bit more of a versatile setup, and it makes the Pixel a better option. You're getting that zoom, you're getting that ultra wide. It's not really a zoom lens, but you're getting a few more modes in here. It just feels like an overall better package for that same price range. It just feels like it could compete more with something like an iPhone 12, for example, in the camera, whereas the A53 giving you a little bit more cameras, but this is not a comparison with that phone. Just gotta say, the camera system setup seems like a better value for the Google Pixel 6a than the iPhone SE. So battery life, once again, the Google Pixel 6a is the better option. It has twice the size of a battery. This one's a 2018 on the SE. Over here on the left, we do have a 4410, so more than twice the size over here of a battery. And that's the perks of getting a slightly larger phone here in the Pixel 6a, is that you get the bigger battery, and it definitely lasts a little bit longer than the SE. Now the SE is improved over 2nd gen SE, but it's nothing to write home about. It's nothing very, you know, extremely impressive. You're still gonna charge this thing like 7-8 p.m. Maybe you make it the day if you're doing light use, but you can kind of heavy use the Pixel 6a. You should make it the day. Once it kind of learns what you're doing with these adaptive preferences as well, it also gets a little bit better. I do like the optimized battery charging for the SE, and the SE does have faster charging, but overall, the battery life is just better on the Google Pixel 6a. And unlike a lot of Android phones, Pixel 6a actually has really good standby time. Google does some of the best standby time in the business. Usually Samsung phones will just start draining in your pocket. I call it phantom drain. So definitely you'll just be like, what happened to my battery life? It doesn't really happen. It really sips in standby on the Pixel. So it definitely lasts a little bit longer than the SE. And number 5 is USB-C 3.1 is a much more universal port than Lightning. Now a lot of people love Lightning because they have 1,000 cables from their past experience with it, but at the same time Apple is already moving in the USB-C direction with the iPad Pros, MacBook Pros. We're still waiting for it on the iPhone, but the Pixel 6a offers it to you now. So a little bit of a better port, I would say, on the Pixel 6a for sure. The next one is Android 12, and going into 13 I think is a more fresh software experience than the iOS experience on the SE. Now the iOS experience in the SE just kind of feels a little bit dated because of the way you navigate the phone. I'm not gonna say Android 12 is a better experience than like the iPhone Pro series, but it does have a little bit more fresher customizations. It looks a little bit more modern, I would say, than the version on the SE, just because of that home button and the way you navigate it, pulling it from the bottom for control center. You get gestures on here, which is closer to Apple's iPhone 12 and things like that. So I think just the feel of how you navigate the Google Pixel 6a and just kind of overall their customizations and stuff, it just feels like a little bit more of a fresh, modern software experience. Whereas the iPhone SE just feels like you got the latest version on an older body, so you don't really navigate it like a newer iPhone. The Pixel 6a just feels a little more fresh and software, I would say, as of the recording of this video. The next one is something you probably will never notice or think about much, but it's 6 GB of RAM versus 4 GB of RAM on the SE. Now the SE will definitely perform pretty similarly, maybe even better in some areas, but in the long haul, I worry that the SE with 4 gigs of RAM, I'm talking way down the line, like 4 years from now, might be a little bit slower than Pixel 6a, which does give you a little bit more RAM for a little bit, maybe better performance in the very long haul. This won't matter for years, but just having that extra memory, we'll see how that plays out in the future, but definitely technically does have more RAM on the Pixel 6a versus the iPhone SE. Even if they're using it differently, it's still more RAM on the phone, so we'll see how that plays out 4 years from now. Believe it or not, the Bluetooth pairing experience is actually faster on the Pixel 6a. It has Bluetooth 5.2. In addition to that, the Pixel 6a does provide Wi-Fi 6E, and this only provides Wi-Fi 6. Now they're pretty similar, but the Wi-Fi 6E does add a 6 GHz wireless band that will allow you to go ahead and be compatible with more 6E compatible modems and routers. So definitely if you're doing things like that, like where you're gonna get one of the latest routers, the Pixel 6a will probably give you a little bit faster speed off of that router than your iPhone SE, but it's not going to be a big difference. You probably will never notice it, but it is technically supporting a little bit faster router. So definitely connectivity wise, both 5G. The Pixel 6a is just a little bit ahead with that Bluetooth 5.2 and the Wi-Fi 6E. So definitely a little bit ahead there. That'll go at number 8. And number 9 is the stabilization factor of the Pixel 6a. This phone actually has EIS and OIS, so electronic image stabilization plus optical image stabilization, and the video is ridiculous smooth. It almost looks like it's on a gimbal. That's something Pixel's been doing for a while, and they bring it here to the Pixel 6a. So the iPhone SE's video, very good, but it does have OIS, but it's not quite as, stable as the Pixel's video. So you might see a little bit more shake in the iPhone SE's video. So overall, I would say if you're looking for a better video stabilization, the Pixel 6a will provide that to you. And finally, at number 10 is a little bit more opinion based, but yeah, I think most people would agree. It's just more modern here with the Google Pixel 6a. Like overall, you're paying around, almost dropped that one, super thin on the SE. It's just more modern phone. The iPhone SE just feels like an iPhone 8, and I just can't get past that for the same price when recommending you these phones. Like, literally the only reason you would pick the SE is if you really just dislike Android, like you just don't like Android and this is your budget, like, but you really are just kind of hurting yourself in terms of, you know, getting worse hardware for the same cash. You're literally passing up on a much better experience hardware wise and much more modern. I mean, the Pixel 6a feels like it's just a discounted flagship phone. The iPhone SE feels like they make a ton of cuts to get you to this price point, so you don't get nowhere near like the Pro experience, whereas the Pixel 6a feels just about to that Pixel 6 Pro experience, but just with a few cuts to get that price down. So a big difference. I think the Pixel 6a is the better phone here, and if I had to pick one, it would definitely be the Pixel 6a night and every day of the week. And I know some are going to disagree, but if you actually been following tech, you would know the SE is way behind in design. So I think Apple will definitely be upgrading this design on the next model. But the SE, don't think I just dislike the phone. There's still a lot of things I love about the phone, and I'm going to tell you 10 reasons the SE is better in the next video. Now that doesn't mean I personally would pick it, but I'm still going to tell you 10 reasons why this phone is the better option. So if you want to see that, stay tuned, and let me know if you want to see maybe a triple comparison showdown or a comparison with the Galaxy A53, also one that some people would be deciding when it comes to these three. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here, be sure to be well. Catch you on the next episode, and peace.